Okay. Hello, welcome everyone. Glad to see you here. I We will be recording this session because, in part, a lot of people couldn't make it, and want this to be sort of a resource that is available more broadly. After the session is over, I'll be sending out an email with the recording. So everyone who's registered will get the recording and any resources that are shared. Ellen will be sharing some things in the chat throughout, but this will all come to you in an email. So no need to try and save links or anything. I will be sending all of that out. This is our first of two workshops this summer. And I want to note, so Wednesday, August 13th coming up, there is a WCC and Feminism in Classics co-sponsored event for writing and revising abstracts to help folks write abstracts for feminism in classics, which everyone should apply for. And the deadline for that, I think, is September 12th. So just to have that on everybody's radars. And next week, we will have another session with the brilliant and marvelous Ellen Lee. Will be leading this one, talking about student-centered strategies for first-year language instruction. Some of the things we talk about today is going to come up in that one of the many places where AI is rearing its head in our classrooms is students plugging sentences into ChatGPT instead of translating them themselves. So some of this will show up, but also a variety of different types of challenges, especially around student motivation. And Ellen will be, I'm sure, would be happy to talk more about this. But it's going to be really wonderful. And she will be leading that because she is very good at language instruction things and far more organized about her language pedagogy than I am. And hopefully I can't see the chat and have the full screen share on this. So hopefully Ellen, through the events link for the WCC, strongly encourage everybody to go and sign up and join all of these events. So just to give us an idea what this will look like today, hopefully we're going to get down through 4-ish in just zippy little fashion in the first hour, because I know for a lot of folks, like an hour is the amount of time that you've blocked out. That's a normal amount of time for things to take. And then we will have another half hour that is much more digging into some of this assignments kind of things, digging into a lot of the more specifics. So it will be much more workshopy towards the end. This is going to be a little bit more info dumpy than some of the workshops that Ellen and I have put on, just because I think there is a lot of information that it's important to kind of ground ourselves in what is going on. So there'll be a little bit of interactive stuff, but then the last half hour, if you are able to stay, the last half hour, which should definitely be number 5 on here, will be a much more just kind of workshopping things together. So what are we talking about? What's going on AI wise in the world? Given that this was billed as a workshop for people who hate AI, I assume most of us have some sort of resistance to the AIification of everything in our lives. And so how futile is resistance? I want to talk about a couple AI things that are not just ChatGPT, some things that I think are less problematic in some ways while still being problematic in other ways. Um, Talking about sort of philosophies of resistance. How do we talk about this with students? How do we talk about this with our colleagues, with our administrators, with everyone who is like thinking AI is the coolest thing in the world and we need to recklessly integrate it into everything in the whole higher ed and in our lives more broadly? Talk a little bit about some assignments and assessments, different approaches kind of coming off of this like philosophies idea, talking about, so what do we do in practical terms? Are there changes we want to make to our assignments, to what we ask students to do? Are there ways to um, make it less likely that we're going to be reading AI generated papers and using our one brief, beautiful life on reading things that no one bothered to put any of themselves into necessarily? And then again, discussions, Q&A. Ellen will be womaning the chat here. So if you have questions, comments, I would like to encourage people, please feel free to use the chat. I know some people find the chat popping up and things when they're presenting to be very distracting. I do not. I find it to be a great, I'm thrilled that you all are having a vibrant side channel communication going on, sharing thoughts, sharing resources, sharing questions, anything like that. And Ellen will keep an eye on that. So if there are things that we want to kind of bring to the the group as a whole, she will make sure that we don't miss any of those things. So please feel free to, if there's things that comes up and you're like, oh man, I read the coolest blog post about this, please do throw all of that in the chat. Plus, there will be some resources. So afterwards, like I said, send out a variety of different things that are out there, things that are works in progress, things to think with, etc. Okay, these are our standard Women's Classical Caucus essential agreements, just in terms of how we're going to be engaging. Just want to get that out there as a starting point. Um, we will be present, fully participatory, take responsibility for our own assumptions, hold ourselves accountable to the work of sharing experiences, coming to new understandings, comfortable being in discomfort, and refrain from language or behavior that is threatening, harassing, or attacking of another participant. Just so we're all engaging in good faith in conversations about things that are important to us and can at times generate some emotions. Okay, so we're going to do quick. We do not have time to do introductions of everybody in the Zoom session, but we will have a breakout session later where we're going to dig in a little more with the same people. So Ellen is going to put folks into breakout rooms and just name, institution, career stage, just the kind of like who you are, what do you do, what brings you here, and what is your biggest AI related concern? And that can be big existential things like, I think it undermines the ability for us to have any kind of shared truth in the world, and that seems bad. Or like, man, I just don't know, like everybody wants me to use Turnitin plagiarism checker, and I don't like that. Or, it can be any kind of thing, but just kind of what's the most pressing AI related concern. We can do about 5 to 10 minutes total here. So do try and make sure you hit these things earlier before you get chit-chatting, and then you'll be back with these same people later. So this will be a chance to lay some sort of groundwork for further conversations that we're going to have a little bit later on. Okay, Ellen, can I ask you to throw folks into rooms? I realized that you and I didn't actually introduce ourselves at all. I just kind of jumped in on the assumption that I was going to say, well, while we're waiting for all the rooms to close, we could also discuss. Ellen, what is your name and institution, and what brings you here, and what is your biggest concern?
So I am Ellen Lee. I'm at the University of Pittsburgh, now promoted to teaching associate professor. Very
Woo!
exciting. Yeah. The main thing that well, I'm here because Amy and I do these pedagogy workshops fairly regularly, I suppose. Amy and I both did our graduate work at the University of Michigan. Together and have been working on pedagogy stuff together basically ever since. And in terms of my biggest AI related concern, oh geez, I don't know. All of them, I'm concerned generally for like my students, but also my institution and also my colleagues and also our crumbling democracy here in the US. And I feel like AI kind of is implicated in all of these things. Uh, and I think as we kind of said in the blurb about it, right? When we were prepping this and talking about it with other folks about what kind of an AI workshop do people want when they say they want a workshop on AI. Mostly we were thinking about the fact that we've been just trying to ignore it for a long time, and like hoping it would go away, that the bubble would burst at a certain point and it would just like fall out, and that maybe that would happen like MOOCs did not a few years ago now at this point, maybe a little while ago. But it would just kind of go away and I wouldn't have to think about it, right? And I wouldn't have to change my pedagogy and I wouldn't have to kind of talk about it in class and I wouldn't have to fully understand it. And it's become clearer to me over the past few months, year, 2 years, however long it's been, that that's not quite the case. So all the concerns, Amy, which is I think one of the reasons why this we came up with just way too much stuff to say in this one presentation. How about
Yeah,
you?
that is probably fair. So I'm Amy Pistone. I am an associate, I'm associate professor. As of a week or so from today, I am officially the tenure date starts. I'm at Gonzaga University. And I have most of my AI related concerns are going to be addressed in the next couple slides. So I'm gonna, in the interest of time, keep us moving here. But it's lovely to meet everyone who, folks that I don't know already. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the state of things, AI style. What is AI? How is it being integrated into the things that impact our professional lives? What can it do? And what ethical concerns does it present? And then that kind of how futile is resistance. So um, well, getting into what is AI, um, there are a lot of really good resources in, Ellen, if you could share either the blog post or also just the resource list. People talking a lot about what is AI. Um, for the purposes of what we're talking about here today, we're going to mostly be talking about what is generally called generative AI. And I wrote up a lot of stuff on a blog post on my website, so I wouldn't have to talk about it here because I knew I was going to be over in terms of content. But one of the things that I really love about uh, some of the people who I've been reading a lot of about AI, is that they're coming in from the perspective of like AI is hype. AI is a label we put on things to be trendy and cool, and it actually encompasses a lot of different things. And there isn't really a discrete, like, what does it mean? Like AI enhanced, AI assisted, AI whatever. There's a lot of different things going on there. And it is worth distinguishing what that is. So, what we're primarily going to be talking about is the stuff that you've probably seen a lot of ChatGPT, these generative AI models. And these are when they're trained on the large language models, LLMs. And so this is your ChatGPT, this is your like anything OpenAI, AI, Sam Altman makes. It's those kinds of things. There are other places, other things that could be called AI. We're talking primarily here about the kind of generative AI stuff that is sweeping the world right now, our country more than others. And so what does that mean? What is it and what isn't it? I imagine that every time I'm saying AI, there's some heavy quote marks around it because it's not thinking, right? And I think the branding of artificial intelligence is in fact like the rhetoric is actually doing a lot in terms of framing how we think about these things and the sort of animacy and the agency that we give AI. And so that said, I don't want to have to keep circumlocuting every time this comes up. So we're going to call it AI with the caveat that like this is in a lot of ways sort of a branding exercise. Okay. Adoption is increasing. I grabbed this particular just because I wanted some data on this, even though I think we also like see it everywhere around us right now. You will notice this is McKinsey, who has their own beta assistant here. And not going to go down all of the ranting rabbit holes that I could have about McKinsey and their AI assistants and AI use, but um, there does seem to be basically use of some kind of AI, and you could dig into how they're defining this and that. Um, was fairly consistent for a while, and we're seeing an increase in generative AI in particular, as well as the use of AI in a variety of other contexts. Right, adoption is increasing. Enthusiasm is not, which actually does give me some hope that most people, if they have an understanding of what we're talking about when we're talking about AI, um, it's not something that they're that excited about. Because sometimes it can feel like everyone wants to adopt this all the time. And there's a lot of pressure to like, why aren't you using AI? Why aren't you using AI? Um, some people are absolutely all in on using AI for everything. But an awful lot of people are concerned, annoyed by the prevalence of when you Google search something, now there's AI overviews, things like that. People actually aren't as fired up about that as some of the propagators of these things might have us believe or want us to believe. So um, it is very much infiltrating the ed tech space. Um, Tech giants partnering with school systems, generative assistant in the university. Uh, Faculty is being in structure and OpenAI. AI is going to be integrated into Canvas. OpenAI launches a study mode in ChatGPT. So they are very much interested in and making a concerted effort to make this a part. When I say they, the tech companies, the people who are selling this, um, are very much looking to make inroads in the ed space. And a lot of people are happy to accept that arms wide open. And I have about a million reasons that that does not sit well with me. But this is something that is happening. It's happening in varying degrees in a lot of different places. Inside Higher Ed has like a whole thing. You can get all kinds of different AI coverage if you want to see all of the different things that are going on there. Um, so what can AI do? It can sort through massive amounts of information. Um, it can perform things like sentiment analysis, read every review of I don't know, the Wicked movie and tell me like what themes come out. What do people say a lot of? It can't make meaningful truth claims, but it can tell you there's a lot of people who say uh it's too long. The songs were amazing. It's whatever. Like so it can give you a basic like kind of sentiment analysis things, right? It can synthesize a Google search quickly. It can summarize a text you don't want to read and generate questions based on that text. Uh, is the summary good? Are the questions good? But it can do it, right? Um, it can generate a list of names for your fantasy football team or places in the novel you're writing, right? And a lot of people are kind of turning to like, give me a list of X. It's can do that, sure. It can make pictures to order that are you don't have to pay an artist. It doesn't mean there's no cost, but you can certainly make a picture with too many fingers on the hands and things. And it can perform menial tasks that take a lot of boring actions. These are things that AI is in fact pretty capable of doing. But um, and this is some stuff I kind of laid out. I go into a little more detail in the blog post that I wrote about this, just again to not have to spend as much time on it here. The resource consumption is incredibly high. We are doing incredible damage to environments, both environmental justice. Like this is a huge issue for the areas that are being targeted to have their entire ecosystems destroyed so that you can have the processing power that it takes, this incredible amount of energy, water, all of this stuff. It's it is a nightmare on that front. Most of the LLMs, the large language models that are widely used, have been built on exploited labor. Not great. Um, Intellectual property nightmare, expands the surveillance state, erosion of privacy, unquestioned perpetuation of ideological biases, right? Whatever it's trained on, it's just gonna it doesn't assess how valid those are. So if it takes in a lot of data that says, I don't know, some sort of racist or sexist interpretation of facts, it will continue to perpetuate those biases and the general enshittification of the information environment. And a lot of these are, some of these are things that I personally don't want to be using something that is an absolute environmental climate disaster. Some of these are much broader than whether or not I or people in my class use these systems, right? These are things that are going on at a very large scale as a result of large scale AI use. So there are things that it can do. I'm not going to be out here and be like, hey, I can't do anything useful, right? I do think that it is both rhetorically and just practically more effective if we do grit our teeth and say like, sure, it like there are actually things that AI is pretty good at. And that is fine, right? I don't think this outweighs the pro or the cons, but I do think it is actually again, both like kind of rhetorically more useful and more honest with ourselves and students, right? We're going to have a lot of students in our classes, like it or not, who are using ChatGPT for a lot of things in their lives. And again, coming in with this, like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to dignify it. I'm not going to engage with it. And I just, nope, don't even mention AI in my class or you're kicked right out, is just not an effective starting point, unfortunately. So I want to move into how futile is resistance. If we want to resist the overwhelming pressure, how can and should we do that? Like, what do we do given all of this? And this is a place where Ellen was very skeptical when I was writing up the event description, but are there less horrible versions of AI? Are there things that might be worth exploring? And I want to preface this all with, like, we're all going to come down somewhere different on our ethical stance on things. Um, I take a lot of flights. I referee college football and I fly across the country a lot. I know that's not good for the environment. I am doing it anyway. Um, and there are all decisions that we make weighing how much, we personally will be complicit in systems that are bad, right? Like we are all profiting on exploited labor. We just are. And so I don't mean to say that there's one ethical stance and all of everything else is incorrect. Um, but I do think we need to have a well-articulated idea of what is okay in our classroom, what is okay for ourselves personally, and if we are being told that hypothetically AI literacy is an important marketable skill and we have to engage with it and integrate it into our classes, how do we articulate how and why not? We're willing to do that. So anyway, are there less horrible versions of AI? Yeah, I think there are things we could discuss there. I am going to introduce them with the knowledge that some people are going to hate the fact that I'm bringing this up. I'm looking mostly at Ellen on this one, but okay. So I want to get into something that is starting to sort of gain more momentum as philosophies of refusal or pedagogy of refusal. And I really like this is in most of the things. If there's a screenshot of it, the link to the actual thing is in the notes on the slideshow. Um, I think they do a really, really good job of laying out kind of the stakes and why these instructors are not going to use generative AI in writing studies, which is something that is in a lot of circles really taking off. To like look at all the great things you can do. You can write a draft, you can this, you can give you feedback, you can, and to say no, we're not going to do that, they make a really good case here. So and then I mentioned here, this is just somebody on Blue Sky talking about that they're increasingly of the mind that there can be no moderate meet somewhere in the middle stance on chatbot style AI in educational settings. Limited reasonable ethical use is empty rhetoric, opposition and refusal. And so kind of thinking about what AI literacy, maybe what we reframe what AI literacy means is understanding how and why these things are being pushed, right? Who stands to gain, who is making money on this, all of those kinds of things. I'm going to give the counterpoint for the sake of debate. And these are things I've been part of they are wanting to integrate Copilot into more things in our university. And I was volunteered as someone who has strong AI resistant opinions to be part of this study group. But one of the things that some of the tech guys that were working with this study or this test group, they were talking about like, do you actually think your students aren't going to be using AI? Like that this is kind of an inevitability, right? Um, yeah, probably. Um, some students are going to do it anyway, no matter how much we say don't do it. And they're getting a lot of messaging from society and sometimes their universities that they should learn to use AI. Employers say they want AI skills in their prospective employees. I have about a million thoughts about what that means, but it is a headline that gets a lot of use in certain circles that this is the number one thing employers say they want. And yes, in a survey or probably more than one survey, that is a thing that people say that they want. Um, I don't I don't think that that is as persuasive an argument. I think it's a lot of people who don't understand AI and they think that that is an important thing that they should say that they want in employees, and they may want it in employees, right? But I don't think that like prompt engineering, being better at having ChatGPT do your work for you, I actually is not, I don't think that is what they want. I think that some of this is that obfuscation around the hype around this, that like, oh, AI can do all these things and it's so efficient and we don't have to pay as many employees and right, those kinds of issues. And I don't actually think that the number one thing employers want is someone who knows how to use ChatGPT well. But there is a fair point to be made that is it responsible pedagogy to ignore this when this is a part of the world, right? And this is part of why when Ellen was talking about like really wanting this to just go away and it's not going away. And I think we do need to address this more head on going forward. And so what that looks like, I have some thoughts, I have some prompts for discussion for all of us. But I think completely ignoring this is probably not the right answer if we think that our job is to help prepare our students to be fully realized people who are members of their community. Like they do actually kind of need to know something about what's going on with AI. And then I have a quote here from something that the Association American Historical Historian Association, anyway, the AHA, the historian group. Um, they put out a very controversial set of guidelines, which if you're able to stay for the second half hour, one of the things I have pulled up as we could potentially kind of dig into some of that together because it is controversial. But they've put forward some guidelines about responsible AI use in the classroom, the history classroom. And this is a quote from there: banning generative AI is not a long-term solution. Cultivating AI literacy is. Um, and just speaking of things that prompted a lot of to do on the internet. Um, Someone had tweeted, I'm ashamed to say that I still sometimes frequent that site, had tweeted out something about today I learned that there are actual people IRL who get genuinely upset if they catch you using ChatGPT, like they view it as a serious moral failing in certain circles. And sort of the discourse around like, yeah, actually, like if you are going to, if I ask you to help me with something, to give me your opinion on something, you're like, I don't have time for that, but here's what ChatGPT said. I actually do kind of consider that a moral failing. Um, so just I wanted to throw out some of the other perspectives on this issue. And so we're going to pop back into the breakout rooms for no more than 10 minutes, probably a little bit less than that, because I do want to make sure we have time to talk through. Like I said, I really tried to cram too much into this. But in your breakout rooms, where are you on the question of can students use AI at all in your classes? Team refusal, team resistance, team something else. But where are you on this question? And kind of as a follow-up, just getting some discussion going of how do you plan to implement that? Do you have thoughts about how to implement that? Where are you right now? And then I have several slides and thoughts and suggestions and things that I'm going to be trying out and some approaches that I think may be effective. But I kind of want to give us a chance to dig into this with one another. And so I won't just be talking at you for some more time. So Ellen, can you throw people back into the same breakout rooms as before?
Rooms are open now. And I'm assigning people who were not around. Well, if it'll let me.
I can assign.
Okay, there we go. To the new room. I created a new room. So for folks who were not around in the. Okay. Oh, wait. Or maybe that was only one person. No, okay. That was it.
No, I was helping. I
All
was
right.
jumping, helping out.
There we go.
Okay, real talk, moving faster than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
I am
you
actually
are.
pleasantly surprised at how quickly I can talk. I mean, I knew I could talk fast, but um because I do think that, I mean, I think there's a lot more to talk about in the back half of like, okay, here's some stuff, here's some thoughts. Okay, now what do we do? So I'm glad we're not like, I was worried we were going to be at like quarter till. I'm like, oh no, there's no time. 10 minutes is being revised to 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes, go in and just yay, nay, and I'm done.
Did you note the time? Let's say 1:36 is when we went in, I think.
I'm gonna say 1:35 because I
Okay.
like nice round numbers.
Round numbers.
Was there
Uh,
anything of note? It looks like there's a lot of,
only one thing really has been said in the chat. Everything else was me because every time somebody joined, I had to share the thing again. So only the last thing is really the only substantive
yeah.
thing that's anybody said, and that was right before we went in. Um, and I would like to get Clara to talk more about that at some point, right? Because that's the thing, right? Like I don't, do I have to do everything is another why do I have to do everything? I guess is more.
Yeah. Like it's not, I am happy to talk about ways people are using technology in classics to do classics things, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about, I don't know, that Aeneas inscription database thing or
Yeah.
whatever. But like I also don't teach people how to code or how to Suzanne just showed up.
Yeah. Do we want to have her? Oh, wait. Did she disappear?
I just put her into a room.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I think I may need to admit her first.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I see.
oh, admit.
Will it admit her directly into a? I was gonna
Um,
say maybe we should wait until we're out of groups to admit her, but
no,
yeah.
it admitted her right into a room.
Okay. Well, all right. Now we know how that works. Interesting.
Um, but yeah, I don't think that I need to be the person who like AI skills, like I think, but I do on some level, that's not like this sounds shitty and we're cutting this part out anyway. I don't necessarily trust all my colleagues to have good opinions about things.
Great. Yeah.
And I
I
I feel like I get into more like philosophical pedagogical things in my classes than I used to about because I'm like, okay, like we actually do need to talk about this. Like, let me explain to you why I'm not grading you in X, Y, and Z. Like, it's not that I want to be like the cool teacher that everybody likes. Like, it's that I don't think that these are conducive to your learning.
mhm.
And you should know why I don't like some of your professors have X kind of policy. I don't have that policy. Here are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think I am inclined to why do we care about education? Like is actually a question that I, you know, insofar as AI intersects with why does any of this matter? Like I do think that is germane to my class. Whereas like the skills, like, I don't know, man, if you want to know how to prompt engineer, we've got computer science classes or something. Like
Yeah.
go talk to someone whose job that is. Like,
Yep.
yeah, please. Okay.
Good. Are you gonna go back? You're gonna go back and edit this video, right?
Now I'm just sending this whole thing out to everybody.
Okay, good.
But
Um,
I think authenticity and transparency is important, Ellen. So isn't editing just another way of manipulating our information landscape? Yeah, isn't that part of the problem?
Amy, Amy, how dare you? Uh, what was I gonna tell you? Oh, do you want me, when do you want me to stop it though?
Um,
Or do you
when
want,
we open it up to fully, I mean, I'm just gonna cut it anyway, but when we open it up to like full
okay,
discussion things,
got it. Okay. Or rather, do you want to tell me when to cut it, or do you want me to make that decision myself?
um, I would say at the point when we're inviting people to share their own opinions,
Okay,
like I think that's generally our guideline of like we want people to feel like they are not being
record it. Yeah.
without their consent. I'm like, and here's
Nope.
a thing that Clara thinks. I say it before I'm like, and Clara had an interesting comment in the
Yeah,
yeah, I think that would be
got
good.
it.
Okay. I am gonna close rooms, I think. I don't think I have kept a very close track of time, but that seems fine, right?
I think let's wait until it changes to 44 because I think you told them like 1 minute ago that they had 3 more minutes.
Okay, well, it's about to turn 44, so we did it. I mean, they still have a minute. I'll give them another 30 seconds. No, wait, it's almost a quarter till. No,
Yeah,
we're closing them.
yeah, we're good.
I have no concept of time. I can't be trusted to make decisions.
Except time zones.
I do know time zones, yeah. This is one of Mike's biggest pet peeves is like my inability to know how long anything takes. Like, no, I could definitely like stop by here before this. And he's like, that is none of that is going to work in the amount of time you think it's going to work. This is why you're late for everything because you have no
Mm.
idea how long anything takes, which I have learned is actually fairly common for people with ADHD. So it's actually ableist for him to give me a hard time about that.
That's right. Yeah. Take
So,
that, Mike.
I messed up and went back into the main room. I
how
tried to
dare
close
you?
the breakout room and I was like, I'm trying to listen. And I went back in here by mistake. I can do this every time.
It's fine. We only got like 5 seconds left. Though
Okay.
everybody's using all the time. So like
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
exciting.
I mean, I did also lie to them about how long they had left. So I figured, because like some people are going to like take the full 60 seconds. So I was like, if we could factor that in.
Right.
Okay, well, now
Good.
everyone's been kicked out.
Everybody's back.
Okay, welcome back. Sorry not to give folks more time, but the fact that everybody spent like until you were literally kicked out, I think is fantastic. Um, because of the numbers we have, I'm not going to ask folks to share out, but we will have more discussion later. Okay, so gonna do a little more content thrown at you, and then no later than 15 minutes from now, we're gonna conclude the information delivery, and we're gonna get into some workshopping, depending how many people we have, in some like guided small group stuff, or in just a big like let's just have our questions. Um, so can AI be not bad? Well, I have many thoughts about this. I'm going to shamelessly self-promote that after many years, I have dusted off my blog and I am actually planning to do a lot of writing about AI in the next, I don't know, whenever I write words. I have been reading a lot. I have been digging a lot into this, in part because I feel deeply that to be a really good hater, you actually need to have an intimate knowledge of the object of, whatever it is that you're being a hater of. And I I will not be accused of not fully understanding what it is that I am criticizing, critiquing. So can AI be not bad? Um, I found this book useful. It's much more into teaching with AI, but I did find it to be for something that is more or less promoting teaching with AI. Pretty good in terms of being pretty clear-eyed about all of the complications and things involved. So I mentioned AI is already increasing inequity, both in education and beyond, but it has the potential to be a tool for equity. Maybe. Um, they throw out a lot of options of things that you could do. And I do think it is, if you are thinking that in some ways you want to integrate some AI stuff into your classes, there is a lot of stuff here to think about. And like I said, they have left plenty of space for you to make up your own mind. I do think that AI is in fact going to increase inequity in very different ways in terms of underfunded schools are going to have most of their teaching outsourced to AI type things, which means that deep learning, the kind of slow skills that take a lot of time to develop, the kinds of things that we spend a lot of time really wanting our students to get, will increasingly be accessible to people, upper class elites. And that I think that I worry a great deal about that. But one could also argue that, if you have no resources at your school, being able to use some of these tools, if you're not going to be given more teachers to help having individualized tutoring, sure, I am willing to entertain that we can put a band-aid on some much bigger problems in some limited ways, by the use of AI. But mm, I have a lot of caveats on that. So teaching with AI, I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of using AI as a foil for deeper learning. The kind of, what if we look at this thing that proposes to be like, oh man, you can talk to Socrates, and you can have a conversation with Socrates, and you can see this imagined conversation here. Um, I think that that is a useful artifact for then figuring out why that isn't what you just did, right? I think that there are in fact a fair number of things where we can hold up, this is what you get from ChatGPT. This is what you get from this thing. Why is that not actually, why is this not actually talking to Socrates, right? You've got source criticism in there. You've got, hey, funny story, we actually don't have anything that Socrates wrote. So you're talking to an imagined friend of Plato who might be based on a real life guy. Like, right, there's a lot of things you can do with something. This is Hume. I think it's humanities maybe, or my human. I have no idea what it's supposed to be abbreviating, but um, you can, and I've talked to folks who have done, uh, you can actually plant incorrect information in you, like you can set it up from an instructor and you can plant things that are just straight up not correct. Um, and have your students trying to sort of interrogate, thinking about it in that way. So it's a thing, it's out there. Um, this is a assignment that a colleague of mine in the English department put together that a lot of people have had really good experience with. Uh, I would want to see it in use before but basically choose a reading from class, a literary reading, and try and get ChatGPT to recreate it as close to the original as possible. Sort of a reverse engineering a text, right? I would argue you could do this just as well by composing your own uh, things in a particular genre. um, but the part that I key into here, this is what I over here for bigger, right? The limitations become clear almost immediately. The most unexpected outcome was how deeply the students had to re-engage with the content from class, discussions about stone, tone, and how what this highlighted was in fact the limitations of large language models, the limitations of generative AI. And I do think there is some value in that, right? In showing students the things that AI actually isn't. We have a librarian who is he's our like dedicated AI stuff librarian. And he came to talk to my first year seminar. And the things that students didn't, because I was just kind of like, we're reading primary sources. We don't need AI for this class. Please don't use it. And that was kind of where I left things this semester. And he was talking to students about like basically none of them, for the most part, had encountered the fact that AI can hallucinate. They just assumed it was credible information. You put something into ChatGPT and what it tells you is right. And this blew a lot of minds. And so I do think that there is some real value to getting students to think about the limitations of these tools and what it is that they can do or they can learn to do that these tools can't do for them. Right? Notebook is, again, all of these have the same environmental impact. Like none of these are outside of that big ethical qualm. But Notebook is a kind of closed source. It's a Google product, and it's kind of a closed source model. So you input everything that you want to be using. So if I want to put, I don't know, all of my notes from a year of ethnographic interviews that I did and put them all in here and have it help me like organize, pull out common threads and be like, oh yeah, actually like 10 of your 15 case studies all mention this thing in one form or another, right? It is a closed source, so it's not going and stealing people's ideas and information and having questionable sources bringing in there. It is a closed source thing. I actually think that there are some cool, interesting applications of this for like you can kind of ask questions of the sources you put into it. Um, I think for research purposes, actually, there are some like useful putting your own notes, things like that. I think there could be some useful applications of this. It's not ChatGPT, right? It does have some problems, but I think there are versions that sidestep some of the ethical problems. So I just want to mention just a couple of these in case there are things people haven't encountered before. It's not all ChatGPT and Grok and whatever. There are some things that are a little bit more intentionally designed to avoid some of those problems. Um, Sherpa is, well, you can see, bring your readings to life, voice-enabled assignments for students to chat about class material. There is in the resources, there's a nice kind of write-up about people using it in the resources sheet that I put together. Again, I don't know, but it's basically if you want to have oral exams, but scheduling oral exams for realsies is going to be an absolute nightmare. This is a little, a little bit closer. It's something that allows people to sort of use use technology to help do oral exams. These are some of the assignments like you could think about doing these kinds of things that and I'm going to pick up the pace because I got 6 minutes. Checklist assignments that have artifacts of student engagement with each step. So do it, take some notes, try the problems, go back, do this, and sort of a stepped thing of like, okay, now ask some sort of thing, now ask for help. Okay, how does that help? Do you learn something, right? So sort of a metacognitive reflection in there, maybe of interest. A colleague of mine that I am in an ongoing collegial debate with about AI. He is in our English department. He does he uses AI quite integratedly in his writing courses. In a way that he is a very thoughtful pedagogue. I disagree with him on a lot of approach things. But he is a very thoughtful person who thinks about what it means to learn and to write. And this is basically, it's a whole website. Again, have links for these things, but um, this is a different approach. I don't personally like it. He and I have been kind of going back and forth with our different, we just have very different orientations to AI. But this, I think, is a thoughtful engagement with these questions. Um, I do think that if we are going to say no, or mostly no, sort of resistance and refusal, I don't think we can just say no. And I don't think the answer is more surveillance and punishment of getting every high super level AI detection software to make sure we catch anyone who's cheating. Um, I don't think that makes a conducive environment for. I didn't use Turnitin before all of this either. I just don't think that that is good in terms of a classroom environment if it can be avoided. Our regions need to be legible to students, possibly also admins, colleagues. And part of why I have been spending a lot of time reading a lot of different things about teaching and AI and the development of AI and the costs and this and that is because I do think that we are most persuasive with any of these audiences when we actually know what we're talking about in a more nuanced way. So what I am planning to do, and I'm happy to talk about this in the next half hour if folks can stick around. I'm working on developing, thankfully I don't have to teach this fall, so I have a whole semester to get this together. Setting up a AI module that talks about some of this basic stuff, because as I've seen, students do not know their encounters with what AI is and ours are very different. They're consuming very different information about this nifty cheat code that you can have in your pocket to save you time and effort and things. I'm working on setting up, and I'm happy to share it with folks once I have something that is shareable. We're going to talk about this in every class. And I'm going to swap out the content that we're doing it with based on the class, but it's going to be first week of every class. Instead of, well, in addition to like, what are our discussion guidelines? How do we have conversations and debates in this class? We're also going to co-create a class policy. And we're going to talk about scholarship on teaching and learning. We're going to talk about why actually, like, are you here because you want to learn, or are you here because this is a thing that you need to check a box so that you can get a job, you can whatever. If it is that you want to learn, a lot of this is fundamentally counter to that goal, right? And talk about like how we know that, why we know that. Planning to integrate some short ethical treatises about like your stance can be whatever you want on where you come down on this issue, but I do need you to figure out what you think and why you think that. Um, and planning to be pretty clear about my own lines and justification, right? Uh, I have rosily Pollyanna-ish ideals about what education should be. I know it's not that a lot of the time. I know that, the corporatization of the university and all of these things, but I do think that education is something that is liberatory, that allows creative human endeavor. This is part of what we are. We learn and we grow and we become in community with other people. And I'm getting much better about making that clear to my students in classes and not just assuming that that's a thing that goes without saying. I'm not going to teach them prompt engineering. Something that came up in the comments before our last breakout session, Clara had asked, like, can someone else teach? Can't we just like assume someone else will teach them some of these things? It is not my job to teach them how to engage with a chat bot. Like they can go talk to computer science department or something if they want to, right? And someone had responded to that about like literacy is different than skills. I'm not going to grade them using AI. I'm not going to teach them how to prompt engineer things. That's not happening in my class. But there is a lot of room that we can negotiate, like what do we think collectively are some guidelines about when and if it is ever appropriate to use AI. I realize that this is setting me up, once you commit to something like this is setting me up to then have to follow through on something that I might be very annoyed about, but I am planning to give this a try for in terms of class community. Um, okay, I'm super, if people have to go, I'll send out the recording. I know I've gone over. Um, I do think with colleagues, if we give ground on the idea that AI is the solution to underpay, understaffing, overwork, we are cooked. That is how if you can just have a cheap or free program do these things, it degrades what we do as something that is just about automation. And why would you ever hire someone else if you can just replace them with if what we do, right? I think just from a basic labor perspective, we need to have a very clear line in the sand and solidarity across disciplines and universities on our job is not the same as a chatbot. Um, at best, I think this is a temporary fix on a much broader problem of increasing inequality and access to education. And assuming that AI will fix that is not going to help. Like maybe it can help temporarily if someone needs help with their math homework, but it is not going to fix any of these problems. And if we act like it will, it means that we don't have to address the much bigger problems. Reliance on AI, by and large, it gets us back to a banking model of education. Ask it a question, get an answer. We know that's not how education, like the banking model of education just isn't the best way to think about education. And finally, the tech industry does not have our best interest at heart. The people who control these things are not incentivized in the same way that we are to maximize student learning, right? To increase knowledge. They do not like, there are some things that I might be less strongly against, if not for the fact that the people who are controlling it are some of the worst people in American society. And uh, that makes me very skeptical of ways that AI is going to be applied. Right? Like the people that are most excited about AI are the people who thought cryptocurrencies and this, like, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt at this particular point in US history. Change or not change our assessments. These are some, and this is really a teaser of where we'll go. If you're able to stick around, we'll take a quick like 2-minute break. But talking about in-person activities, right? Reacting to the past, some of these historical role-playing, debates, presentations. I have some thoughts about reading responses and how they can be used to minimize the benefit of using ChatGPT instead of doing the reading. In-person exams, oral exams, I don't love the idea, some of these, but depending on the class, I've gotten away from in-person exams and I don't want to have to go back to them. I don't know. We'll see. Oral exams, reflective exercises, in-class low stakes writing assignments. I think that's a much better option than in-person exams. Assignments that prioritize process over the final product, and just generally reassessing the role of the formal essay. And then just as a final note, I come back to this idea. This is a blog post called Against Cop Shit about I think it was probably back when we were talking about like Turnitin and some of these other surveillance techniques, but it becomes increasingly uh I just don't think an antagonistic relationship between a professor and a student, which is what all of these, like, we have eye tracking technology, we have this, we have that to make sure you can't cheat on your whatever, is not conducive to a learning environment that is going to help people learn, right? So that is a little poem I found on the internet because I love twee things I find on the internet. Um, but the we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to jump into some discussion, some workshopping, some Q&A. If people want to, we can dig into this thing that the AHA put out that has caused a lot of consternation. We can kind of go in any direction people most want to go, but I'm going to start by giving us like 2 minutes. So it's 11 or it's 05 basically, wherever you are. At 07, we'll jump back in. If folks want to just hang out and chit chat, I'll look at stuff in the chat. If you need to go, thank you so much for coming. I will send out, we'll stop recording at this point once we go into discussion, but I will send out all of this as well as all the links and resources and anything anybody else shares in the chat. I'll compile all that and send it all out. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Sorry this was so like me talking at everyone rather than, but we do now have plenty of time for discussion if folks are able to stick around. If not, it was lovely to see you.